Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ulf Oesterle, and I teach at Syracuse University. I've been here for the last 16 or 17 years, with the majority of that time spent teaching at the Bandier program, part of the Newhouse School here at Syracuse University. And over the course of my career at Syracuse, I've had the chance to teach virtually every one of the classes that we offer in our undergraduate and graduate music business programs. But it's really been the last 6 months where I've had the opportunity to volunteer for a new nonprofit called Showmakers. And they really developed out of the need for a little bit more support for those working in the live music business, especially after the year that we've had with the shutdown. And so today, we wanted to pull together a few professionals working in live and talk about something that I don't think that we do a great job at teaching at the higher ed level. And that's really the focus on the production jobs in live music. I went through a few of the course descriptions for some of the institutions, and I won't call them all out, but in looking at these course descriptions, we do teach a little bit about the production jobs in live music, but it's not really a deep dive. It's a conversation that happens within the course of a larger full semester class. And so, that's something that I think deserves a lot more of a focus on talking about those pathways to employment on the production side of music. And so I pulled together two panelists today who have tremendous experience in this area. And I'd love to have each of you introduce yourselves. And we'll start with Meegan Holmes.
Hi, everybody. I'm Meegan Holmes. I live in Los Angeles, California. I've worked in the community here since 1992. I attended California Institute of the Arts and graduated in 93. So as you notice there's a little overlap. I started working in the industry before I graduated. And I started out in the industry as a stagehand, working locally and kind of bouncing around town. And eventually started working for a company called Delicate Productions, where I toured for them off and on for almost 14 years. A myriad of local events, festivals. I've primarily focused on doing audio throughout my career. My degree is in sound design, and have done some production work, continue to do some production-related work. And in 2016, I started the branch of an international audio company called Eighth Day Sound. They needed somebody to start their branch here in Los Angeles. And last year, we were acquired by Claire Global. So I work for Claire Global now, and in a large warehouse with both entities kind of operating simultaneously with each other here in Sun Valley, California. And I still do a lot of production work. I do production manage a small space here in town. And I don't so much do mixing anymore, but I do a lot of personnel related stuff for the company, and I share the general manager position here as well. And that's me.
Great, thank you. And John Hardison, some will know you as boxer. How about a little bit about your background?
Hey, John Hardison, or boxer. Basically started. I got a truck instead of a 2-seat car when after my car got in a wreck, and then loaded a friend's DJ gear into my truck and drove it out to a gig in Palmdale, and started working with friends' bands and whatnot. Went to college at Cal State Fullerton, got a degree in radio, TV, film. Spent an internship realizing I didn't want to sit in a room and edit videos for a living, and I'd already started working as a stagehand through college. And working for local promoters, did a van tour in 93, 94, and then did a bus and truck tour in 95, right when I got out of college. And, those were directly through local work that I had, loading trucks for cash, working around town, working for lighting companies, working for local theaters, local promoters. I started Bigger Hammer, which is a We provide crew and crew coordination. We have a large pool of stagehands in Southern California, and then we also coordinate labor across the country and in Canada. And so I started that early on, and it kind of grew organically, and I toured for about another 8 years. And then went full-time, just only working at Bigger Hammer, other than I do some one-offs now, some stage managing, the staging supervisor, and I tour with a band that does like one-offs and international festivals. At Bigger Hammer, we work with across the industry with, the largest tours you've probably heard of. We've done their rehearsals, and but we also do corporate events, small events. So we touch theater, concerts, conventions, all the whole aspect of live events, much like Meegan does.
So between the two of you, decades of experience in live, in production, and so you've done a lot of hiring over the years in both of your positions. Can you talk a little bit about where you're finding those employees? Are they coming through university systems? Is it straight out of high school, trade programs? Because I think those pathways and recognizing where they are, if they do exist, are important for us to discuss, amongst the higher ed colleagues here.
We interns, and we have hired people from USC. We've hired people from CRAS, which is a recording school in Arizona. We've hired folks from Full Sail, which is another audio school out there. And then, we have a lot of people that come to us through another industry-related organization. Like they were working for Boxer and they really want to specialize in just doing audio, and they've gotten close to us, and we see an opportunity to have somebody come work for us that already kind of knows a lot about the industry. The cold calling, applying does happen, but only with experienced personnel. The entry level people, it's very hard for us to hire unless somebody's got some sort of background in what we do.
Yeah, and I'll just dovetail on that. Is we try to cast a wide net, and or even more so this year as we come back at it, we're really trying to reach out across, because there was a shortage of experienced people before the pandemic, and the pandemic is not going to help that. A lot of people have relocated back to where they grew up if they moved out to LA, for work. But so yeah, we do see a lot of college graduates. The thing that is, people come out and they think they're going to be a lighting designer or, the person in charge of the gig. And it's really like, you got to push boxes, you got to load trucks, you really need to understand the entirety of it. And so, we don't see, occasionally we'll see some people from Full Sail and some other institutions where they're pretty well position to start working. But right out of school, you really hope that if they were in a program in college, that they had hands-on stuff. And like you said, it wasn't just a week of like, okay, here's what lighting is for, for concerts or whatever, that it's where they were able to actually patch a snake and, stack a PA and do all that hands-on stuff. So they really understand what the job's about.
Yeah, I'll say
Go ahead.
that we really do look for, even in our interns, people who have had some sort of, campus related experience. And like our intern that we hired full time, who's going to USC, he was doing the shows on campus with their equipment and had that experience. So we didn't have to teach him a lot of the basic stuff. I don't think we really have time for that to teach somebody from the ground up. So, that kind of working knowledge coming in the door was really crucial and is crucial for the way that we hire, even if it's an intern position.
Meegan, can we drill down a little bit more on that? Those basics. What are they? Because this is something that I know we're looking at here at Syracuse University. And I'll be the first to admit that I don't think we do a great job here at Syracuse about teaching the production-focused jobs. There are on-campus opportunities through events and technical services or University Union, which programs all the campus programming. But we don't have classes that are hands-on, build out what it's going to look like with audio or video boards, lighting. We don't have those courses here. So, are there a list of skills that you would love to see for students that are coming out of a music business program that would focus a little more on production?
Yeah, I'd want to see that they, had some physical experience with equipment, whatever that is. That can be a broad term for video, lighting, backline, audio, staging, all of these facets of what we do each have a mainstay of technologies that come with them in some way. So really getting an understanding and a good handle on what these technologies are and how they are integrated together. Because I honestly, Boxer and I, we're actually quite fortunate that we started out as stagehands because it gave us both a really good foundation for understanding the big picture and seeing all of the aspects of a production and not just a tunnel vision look at, I'm just a lighting designer. This is all I'm going to see is this small little box. It doesn't make you a helpful professional in a team environment. We are a group of people that put on a show. And so I think it's very important that if we're going to be teaching anybody, entry level stuff, that they be able to understand that there are all these aspects that make up an entire production and that each one of them has power, rigging. You will need some sort of labor to install it. You'll need to have some sort of computer technology background to operate it. And that those kind of components for each department are what make up a big picture, the big show. So there's all that little minutia, but then there's the big paintbrush, the big strokes.
Yeah, because if you work, like I work as a stage manager or a production manager, you have to understand lighting, you have to understand video, you have to understand sound. Like if you expect that show to start, when to be ready for doors, and you can pinpoint a problem where the lighting rig's not going to go up, that's something you have to understand how all those pieces go together. And just to even for people who maybe don't end up doing production, is the best like booking agents and managers that I've worked with are the ones that understand that they literally have actual experience in touring. So they understand everything that's needed to be at that arena on day one, or why it's not a good idea to schedule a border crossing on the day two of a back-to-back on the beginning of a tour, those kind of things. And so really understanding, you're seeing more management hire like tour managers or production managers to be full-time on a booking agent or on the management side. I think that's really helpful. There's just a ton of jobs on the production side, whether it's in like experiential marketing or, theater, conventions, all that stuff is live production. And, if a college is really just focused on management and booking agent side of things, that's ignoring at least half of the industry, maybe not more.
I know the days of wearing one hat while on tour are long past us, so having multiple roles and being able to fill in, that's something that we're seeing today, correct?
Well, I think as you go higher up the food chain, as it were, you're more likely to wear just one hat, right? On a bigger act that has, multiple buses versus a van tour or a one or two truck, one or two bus tour. You're going to wear more hats because the budget just isn't there. And the need's not there necessarily for a person to occupy the sole role of like tour accountant, right? You probably see that on your medium to large tours, but probably not on your smaller tours.
Yeah, can you take us through a little bit, some of the roles that you would see between, what's different between the medium-sized tour, the large tour? Like, how many people are you going out with? What are those roles that we need to fill, and where are the opportunities now that we're heading back into a season where we're going to have some fall concerts?
Yeah, I mean, September is going to be interesting. Basically, every festival that was canceled in the last 14, 16 months is happening in September. So we're looking forward to that, shall we say. Right. I mean, you can have, a stadium tour. I don't know, what is that, 20 buses or something like that, maybe 40 trucks. I mean, a big stadium tour, and versus you have either a van tour or a one bus, one truck tour. So, I mean, the basics are you're going to have a backline tech of some kind. Maybe you have a dedicated guitar tech, drum tech, keyboard tech. You're going to probably be traveling with a monitor engineer, a front of house engineer. You might, on the smaller tours, be traveling with a lighting director, an LD. Maybe there's a production manager and tour manager of the same person. And as the venues that you are playing and the paychecks that your act is drawing get bigger, those roles expand, right? So you might have a 4-person, 8-person lighting crew, a 4-person, 8-person sound crew. You probably will get a dedicated backline tech for each, one or two guitar techs, a bass tech, a drum tech. You might have a wardrobe person. You might have a production coordinator that, assists the tour manager and the production manager. You might have somebody who looks after the band in addition to the tour manager. All those roles. And then on the other side of that, you have all the local people. You have the promoter, you have the local crew at the venue that you're going to. You have runners for both the band and for the building or for the venue. And I just want to make a point about that is most people or many people in live production, they tour and they do one-offs and they do corporate shows. It's not just like, and you may switch jobs somewhat between whatever gig you're doing, might be a little bit different because you do have multiple talent, multiple sets of talents that can translate, but are slightly different from, gig to gig. So it's really fluid and you have to be flexible.
This idea of like moving from gig to gig brings up the idea of sort of promotions in my mind, and you might have one role on a smaller tour, a different role on a larger tour. But it's not like tenure and promotion where you're going to go from assistant to associate to full professor. There aren't those clear lines in the sand. So what does promotion look like from your standpoint with, decades of experience here, seeing the pathways? And Meegan, why don't you try to take this one on?
I see very interesting trajectories happen, and a lot of it is right place, right time. Opportunity is sometimes just chance in our industry, especially when it comes to touring. It's, the front of house engineer, their mom just passed away. They've got to go, and they can't finish out that tour. A lot of the time, that person's tech, who's from the vendor, usually setting up all the equipment and supporting that engineer, also been at every show and seen every show each night. Sometimes that tech gets to mix front of house for the rest of that tour. And it is in many ways an opportunity to kind of rise and show who you are. There are times when people get fired. It's just not working out. And that tech gets to slide into that role. It's hard to say, like, there's no, like, after 5 years of touring, I get a promotion and I get to, I'm not a monitor tech anymore. I'm a monitor engineer. A lot of it too is just kind of owning what you want and owning who you are and what you feel your experience is bringing you. We are in many situations, those technical positions through a vendor are a really good springboard to also work for an act that maybe was the opener for the tour that you were on. And so you mix them and they actually love the way you did it, or they like your personality, or like being around you and think that you're a wonderful person. And before you know it, you're on tour with them. There's all sorts of ways to kind of get into the touring situation. And one of them is working for a company like ours and following that path and letting it lead you to where you want to go. And so much of the time, it's about talking about what you want and what you're after, and thinking about, the kinds of things that you're interested in. I tell people all the time, if you don't like doing something, look around you and see what everybody else is doing and see if you maybe want to do that and shift a little bit. And I've watched people make some pretty big pivots in their careers because they haven't been enjoying being a carpenter on tour. And so now they're a stage manager, or now they're a production manager because they've had that experience of being out there and meeting people and talking about what they're interested in, and that person. It's a lot of networking.
I was just going to say,
it's a lot of networking.
The relationships that you build in this business. I mean, we're fortunate to like most of the people we work with, but I think people who are early in their career can kind of be short-sighted about, I can trace the start of my company and my first tour or two to like one or two people that I worked for. Right. Let's see, there was a time I was working in a theater and there was a ballet that was in there for a week. And the lighting designer said, I walked in on him talking to, I was a fly reel operator, and I walked into the production office of him asking the house production manager if I'd be interested in going to Australia and New Zealand to take an ice skating show there. And, we worked out and I did it. And another time I got put on Bye Bye Birdie was going out, and I was in the house the first date that they did, and they weren't ready to go on the road. And so they hired me to go out with them for the first month of the tour to get it in shape. And I was a guitar tech / production manager, working with a band called the Eels, and our tour manager, his dad had a heart attack and he had to fly to Scotland. And so I took over and, became their tour manager. Those are kind of just, those are the opportunities that are there. I was working as just doing a bunch of gigs around town. I used to do all these hip hop shows for Power 106, and, the person who had hired me, that stage manager that did their gigs ended up going out on tour with John Tesh and actually offered me a backline tech job with John Tesh, but also he stopped stage managing all the local gigs. So I ascended to be the stage manager for all those hip hop shows. So it's about being ready to take on those roles when they're in front of you, but definitely the people that you work with, almost all those people are still in the business, and you have to really maintain, good relationships with those people.
In knowing both of you, we've had prior conversations, talking about sort of the personalities of people that are on the road, and being a good person is one of those, because, it gets a little tough when you're in a bus day in and day out if there's some personality issues between people on tour. Are there other skills that you look for in touring professionals, things that we should look out for or start teaching our students outside of being a good person? Financial literacy, or are there mental health conversations that we should have?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
I'll just thank the late Patrick Steinsfeld, who when I was working as a production assistant in a garage office as he was advancing, Barbra Streisand and Madonna, pulled me aside, Boxer, mutual funds, make sure you start an IRA. And I was probably 21, 22 years old. And, if you can get somebody to start their retirement when they're in their 20s, that's, something definitely needs to be encouraged. I mean, when you tour, there's this cycle of you're making a bunch of money. You're basically putting it in the bank while you're on the road because you don't really have expenses, or you have limited expenses while you're out. then you come home and you probably have a bunch of free time on your hands where you spend that money and you go, oh, wait, I need to get back out on the road again to make some money. So there's these real ups and downs in the income stream. And if you're not good at managing that, you're going to be in trouble. I mean, it's funny. You could watch people who were on the same tour, made the same amount of money, and one of them is like perpetually broke, and the other one, their car always runs. And it's people not having those skills. So I think financial literacy is probably one of the strongest skill sets you really need to have to be basically a freelancer or somebody who works touring, you know.
I agree with the financial aspect of things, and kind of having an understanding of also a lot of what we do, budgeting. A lot of these positions that we hold are positions that we deal with money and spreadsheets and stuff like that. Having a strong background in all of that is beneficial, especially if you plan on going into any of the managerial positions. There's just no way you're going to survive unless.
I mean, even a runner has to deal with float, right? They have to come back with all the receipts and the change that match whatever things they bought that day. And, you know, if you're not good at that, and that, I mean, you're not doing that much different when you're a production manager or tour manager that's on the other side of that, settling the float. You know, it's basically the same responsibility. Yeah.
And then I'd say one of the things that I tell people all the time is in the live side of the industry, there are very few positions that don't involve some sort of physical work, even if you're just running around, you know, managing people or setting up a merch booth or, you know, but all of what we do on the technical side of things is a manual labor job. So taking care of your body, preparing yourself, like I think that that's a really important aspect of it. And then the mental well-being is something that we're starting to stress more and more in our industry, and just kind of learning about yourself and what makes you tick, I guess, is not a bad thing coming into the industry, because there are going to be long, hard days. There's going to be challenging times. There's going to be moments of anger and frustration. You're not going to get a lot of sleep, especially if your aspiration is to tour. You're going to have days where you're running low on energy, and how you handle yourself and deal with these stressors, I think is an important aspect of what we do too.
Yeah, I know. Like you know, we all track our activities now on our phones or our watches, and on a big, you know, on a gig where I'm stage managing, I probably do like 10 to 13 miles of walking in a day. And even when you're working locally, if you have a 15-hour load in day and then your call time's 8 a.m. the next morning, you know, you're getting home at midnight, you're getting to sleep at 1 or 2, and you're getting up at 6. You know, that's about, even if you have an 8-hour turnaround, which we shoot for oftentimes, that means you're probably only in bed about 5 hours at the best. So it can be really challenging. And those, I mean, it's, if someone does have, you know, mental health challenges, you know, none of those things they're just going to exacerbate that. They're definitely not going to help it, other than maybe the camaraderie of being around people that hopefully care about you, that you work with. But it's definitely challenging.
We've got some questions that are starting to come in, and the first one I think goes along with this conversation that we're having now. The question is, you know, how do you advise women working in the touring industry to navigate life while on the road? And I'll throw that over to either of you.
I'll let you start.
Yeah. There are more women on the road now, or aspiring to tour now, than when I started in 97. And that is a wonderful thing. And it makes it easier when you have at least another few women on the tour with you, but you're not always in control of that. And I'd say the things that you can work on are holding your boundaries, and really, again, this is you know, learning about yourself, you know, understanding your triggers and the things that upset you, and holding your ground, not being afraid to hold your ground and stand by who you are, and not let, the world kind of twist you up into something that you're really not, or changing yourself to be in a particular way because you think that's more acceptable. I think the people that are the most successful in general, if they're facing any kind of othering, I guess, in our industry, are the ones that are just genuinely themselves and hold those boundaries. And I don't know if that's helpful, but it's certainly the way that I've survived is just by, being myself and being genuine and being honest, but also not allowing people to mistreat me when I feel like I was being mistreated.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is, when I first went to Europe in '96, it's like, wow, there's a lot more women in the business in Europe and in Germany and, across Europe. And you come back to the States, and I think we're still playing catch up on, I've done tours where I'm sure I've done tours where there were no women on the tour or one woman on the tour. And so I think one thing that our industry is focused on, I hope it remains focused on coming out of the pandemic, is really doing outreach and getting a diverse crew, getting those opportunities, and not waiting for people to come to you, because the pipeline, right? If we get 100 applications, maybe 20% of them are women, right? And so we need to do a better job of going to find people and encouraging them to apply. And I think in education, there's been stats for years that there's more women getting college degrees than men. So I think the college market is great to tap into because it's skewed, slightly more women there. So, and I would say many of the women that we hire do have degrees from theater, mostly.
Quick two follow-ups that I have before moving on to the next question that was posed. One being that, looking at diverse hires in this space has been a big talking point this year. And, we do see that there are scholarships available for some of our students that are interested in working in live, particularly through AIBA. They've got some for those that are campus programming specific and those that are interning in the live space. So if you're not familiar with those, I would encourage all of you to look at AIBA's site for some of the scholarships they offer. But as a quick follow-up to this question on the operating as a female in this business, how do we ensure that the women are getting equal pay as the men? Is there transparency here? Are women still being underpaid as they largely have been in other sectors of entertainment? Is there some sort of best practice that we can have moving forward with a little bit more transparency for wages so that the guy on the tour is not getting paid, X plus 5 over what she would be paid?
I think, well, for somebody like Boxer, he pays a standard rate. Doesn't matter. It matters the position. It doesn't matter the person.
Right. So that's been easy to do, right? If you're a forklift driver, you're getting that rate.
That's it.
Whoever it is, they get that rate. If you're an electrician, a master electrician, or a rigger, ground rigger, uprigger, you get that rate, right? So it is nice to be able to look at that. Now, do we have as many women fork operators as I think we should have? No, we're not there yet, but we're continuing to work towards it.
Yeah, on our side, there's only 5% of the sound people in our live industry are women. So, yeah, that percentage needs to change, and we need to get that number up, of course. But that's what we're kind of working with when we're trying to shift those numbers. And so, a lot of these women that are starting out are getting paid the same wages that the guys are as they're starting out. I feel. I feel like
I think probably like if you're putting a tour budget together, you have a number for what your guitar tech's going to get paid.
That's right.
And I'm not aware of anybody who would pay a woman guitar tech different than a male guitar tech. But I think where you might see the income skewed is just the inherent that there's more men in leadership positions and those get paid more, right? So
yeah, and I would say that further up the food chain too, that we might likely be seeing a difference in pay when we start getting into these higher level positions: production managers, tour managers, designers, house engineer, monitor engineer. These are all more higher paid positions already. Even what I do sales, general management. Am I getting paid the same as the men around me? I don't know, to be honest, because we've been trained culturally to not talk about how much we make with each other. And no business really wants its employees talking with each other about how much each other makes, especially when there's no leveled pay, when there's no bracket that, this is a starting salesperson makes X amount of dollars. So in Boxer's case, it's awesome because everybody knows they're getting paid fairly and equally. When you start getting into what I do.
And with the roles where you only have one person in that role, it's hard to quantify, right? If if I only have one head rigger and safety manager and that person's been a man, I mean, obviously I would, if there was a woman in that role, it would be the same salary range. But, I think I was on a Clubhouse maybe a week or two ago with a women in touring, and, they really just encouraged people to talk to their people in their same roles and ask them what they're, what they make. And they were like, hey, reach out to me. I will talk to you about it. Or if you're going to get on this tour, I'll tell you what a range that seems, fair would be. Because it's, if you're on a van tour is different than if you're on an arena tour or a shed tour or a stadium tour. If you're working for the hottest act and you're selling out night after night after night of 20,000 people, it's different than if you're doing clubs and theaters.
Great. We've got a few more questions here, and I want to be sure we get to all of them prior to the end of this session. This next one focuses on technology, really referencing the fact that technology is really creeping into all facets of business, studio production, business services, so on and so forth. Are there any cutting edge technologies that the college professors should be aware of, or any basics on signal flow and systems that is new that they should sort of incorporate into classes or be up on?
Networking. On my side, networking is everything. Networking. Computer technology networking. I'm not just talking about like my relationship with Boxer. I'm talking about computer technologies and networking. I almost feel like our guys need to be Cisco certified now. That's how deep that's getting. Any kind of computer technology knowledge is incredibly important, because that's all a mixing console is anymore. It's just a big computer with some sort of slave with it that operates the computer inside. How to use these technologies, integrate them, make them all work together. That is all that computer technology. It's funny, our industry has gone from being kind of a bunch of pirates, and traveling around the world, to a bunch of nerdy pirates traveling around the world, because you really do need to have that strength. And so I would say understanding signal flow, of course, that's vital, but also having a really strong background in networking is something that, you could definitely be teaching, and it would be beneficial.
Yeah. And that goes for lighting and for video. There's a bunch of wireless technology for lighting. I know there's, Meegan, there's an RF tech, right? Someone who literally just coordinates all the radio frequencies for the wireless mics and belt packs and for the guitars. But yeah, and video and, networking is a really big one. And it's just part of its, as I would say that the programs should have allies that work in the business locally, right? That they can talk to, because it changes from year to year. It's not, there's not one thing. It's continually evolving. And it's going to look different 5 years from now than it did 5 years ago. And you do have to stay on top of it if you're in, that role. But even if you're a production manager or tour manager, you still need to understand, what's the line array that you're going to take out, or what's the current sound system that you're going to take out, because you're going to need to understand the budgetary difference if it's this sound system or that sound system. And there's a lot to keep on top of.
Question from the student perspective. So this really is advice for students who might be a little hesitant and resistant to the fact that they should get a degree in order to work in the live music business. What would you say to those students that say, I don't want to go to college or I don't need a degree to work in the live business?
Well, both Boxer and I went to college. And I would say we're holding positions that are likely a little bit more managerial as a result. And I think that's probably part of what a college education can bring you, is that you might actually be able to push past some people if you want to get into more on the upper level of things. Is it absolutely 100% necessary? Absolutely not. But I feel that certainly when we hire people that are fresh out of college, we love that, because your aptitude for learning is so much more ratcheted up than, somebody just, that's been working out of high school. It's not to say that one is better than the other or one yields a better worker. I just feel like the college grad just seems to soak it up faster. I also think that the networking aspect of my college education, I mean, my friends from college, line designer for Pearl Jam, production manager for Justin Bieber, like, just to name two. Like, these are people that I've known since 1989 and are very much established in the industry. And while we don't work together directly, we are products 100% of our networking and our ability to network. And I think that starts in college. I think you're making friends in college that you will work with forever, especially if you stay in your chosen industry.
I mean, we both worked while we were in college, and, starting to develop that career while you're in school. The theaters that I worked at, it was, I was, we had ASP, the in college production arm. We had two venues and we had to put the PA up twice a week. We had to push it out to the amphitheater and then push it back and then put it up in the pub for Wednesday shows outside and Thursday shows in the pub. And, the person who was my TD at that college is a sometimes client and sometimes employee to this day. And so, which is another funny thing, just as an aside, is you never know who's going to be your boss or who's going to work for you. It's that can change from gig to gig. But yeah, having that for me personally, having that 2 years, 3 years at on the end of getting my college degree was when I really developed my understanding that that's what I wanted to do for a living. And it gave me that space to develop those relationships and to get kind of the basic knowledge to do those first gigs, to be a runner for a U2 stadium job, to kind of really start understanding what all goes into doing those gigs. And being a runner or being a PA is a great job to really start to understand the pieces. And I think that schools need to do a better job of getting that hands-on experience for people.
And that's something that we're exploring at Syracuse. It's been a long conversation. I've been here for a long time. And for years, I've been talking to administration about the fact that I think we need a venue that we can own and operate and, actually use that as a learning laboratory. So the students are building the PA, they're building the lighting setup, you're handling the ticketing system, and you're, really working all aspects. And I know that's a heavy lift for a lot of schools. There are some institutions that have access to venues and can do this. But, in my review of our collective degree plans, the production-based jobs may be a class. It may be a part of a class. And, I do think there should be a push at the higher ed level for some more structure to support these types of jobs and these types of roles. Boxer.
Yeah, more like a theater program, right? Where, we hire a lot of stagehands that started out as actors when they were in college. And part of being an actor in college is you have to take tech theater. You have to take a job, like one semester of working behind the curtain, working behind the scenes. And it maybe their career didn't work out as an actor, or many have found that they actually like doing lighting more than they liked acting, or it's definitely can pay your bills while you're still exploring your acting career on the side. And honestly, working in production, if you're a musician or an actor, you're pretty much in charge of your schedule. So you can juggle those things, even if, you're not going to make a living as an actor or musician, you can still, have those, or maybe it's part of how you make a living. You can still do those and be a stagehand and be, a guitar tech or be someone who tours. You can fit them in because it's not, unless you're in the office, like Meegan and I are a lot, it's a 9 to 5 plus kind of job. But when you're working on gigs, that's not the case.
But you're in the office now because you put in the time on the road and, really learning every role that's out there. We only have a few minutes left here. And I want to circle back to a quick mention that, Meegan, you had about certifications. You said network certification is something that you would encourage. Are there any other certifications out there that maybe we can start to employ if it's outside of the classroom? I know the big discussion this year is sort of COVID compliance officer training, because with the reopening of venues, you want to be sure things are still sanitized. But I know there's got to be some other certifications out there that might be supplemental to what we do in the coursework. And I'm curious to see if there's any that you would recommend.
There's safety certifications that you can get. Boxer, what's the name of the
event? So I happen to be on the board of the Event Safety Alliance. They do have some basic safety training, the ESAT training, which is super accessible. Let me take a minute to plug the Event Safety Alliance. I think the membership's something astronomical, like $25 now. We really have made an effort to get it to be very affordable, and that comes with some training included. But Meegan's referencing the ESTA's ETC program. It's a certification program, but it's for electricians and for riggers are the 4 roles that fall under those 2 departments. But it's basically the equivalent of maybe somewhere between an associate's and a bachelor's degree, but it requires a fair amount of experience to get to those levels. So you have to be working in the field in order to get certified. You have to have X amount of hours under your belt and then pass a certification, a test at a testing center. And that's ESTA.org if people want to look into those.
Dante is another networking type language that is used. There's 3 levels of certification for that. If you're an audio person, taking the trainings for, whatever, L-Acoustics, DMB, Adamson, Meyer, these PAs all have, their own ways of measuring and interpretations for hanging their PAs. Those are all things that you can kind of expand on. Consoles, technologies like Ableton and Pro Tools or other things. There's obviously, if you're a lighting person, there's all sorts of lighting consoles to learn out there. Media
right,
servers.
I was going to say the manufacturers have a lot of good training resources. If you go to ETC or to Yamaha, you can find their trainings for, the same with the Hog, the whole Hog series of consoles, like any of the console manufacturers, whether it's lighting, audio, or even the media servers, they have training. And I mean, there's people who have YouTube channels dedicated just to that stuff like that, which are great resources. And for, colleges, maybe they can look to those to see, what works and, some samples of some stuff, and even, point those out to their students.
And I know one of the conversations I've been having with Jim Digby, who founded Showmakers, surrounds mental health awareness and training, and potentially offering something down the road for college faculty where we can go through those mental health training exercises. Because since we are those leaders at the university level for the next generation of music business employees, that's something I think I know we're doing some training on campus just as part of the university. But entertainment specific mental health and safety training there is important, as well as the conversations that surround sort of psychological safety, feeling like you're safe on the work site from the standpoint of being accepted based on your identity. That's a big conversation that's happening right now as well. Showmakers is going to be a resource for all of us. And, I'll put out my email. It's just ulf@showmakers.com. And if I can assist in helping bring some of these production professionals to your classes in the fall semester, that's one of the resources that we want to provide at Showmakers. We've got a nice network of speakers that would be happy to step into some of your classes. I know Jim Digby's done a handful of them over the course of the spring semester, and we'd love to bring our network to those of you that are looking for more perspectives as guest speakers in classes. So again, ulf@showmakers.com is that email address, or showmakers.com has some of the financial literacy resources, mental health resources, and other content there that may be helpful as we move towards the fall semester. With just about 2 minutes left, I'll pass it back to each of you for any final thoughts on this session and things that you might want to leave the audience with as we head into the touring season this summer and fall.
I'm happy that people are open to expanding the education for people in our industry. We need more people coming up and in, and anything that a higher level of education can do to encourage people that this is a legit, amazing job with a really cool kind of unique trajectory, I think is wonderful. So I appreciate everybody coming out and listening.
Yeah, and I would just say for anybody who's a student is just to go find a way to get your hands dirty. If you're currently out of college, it doesn't have a live event program, to go find a local theater to work at, a club to work at, find who the local promoter is. They're always looking for reliable people. Well, except for the last 14 months, but other than that.
Yeah, overall, I think, focusing on these production jobs and how they work, the chain of command, budgeting, all of that really will help enhance the current educational courses that we have and the degree programs that we have that do a great job teaching about agents and promoters and, the business side of this. But the production side is really important, and we will not operate as an industry without a strong base in production, lighting, sound, all of that. So again, thank you for being a part of this conversation with us. It's a conversation that we hope to have ongoing for the next several years, and look forward to any assistance that we can provide in your classes for this coming fall semester. Congratulations to those of you who finished up the spring semester already, and Showmakers can be a resource to all of you. So Meegan, Boxer, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
for having us.
Thanks for having us. Take care.
Good to see you.